All right, y'all. So this story's a little bit old, but I wanted to talk about it. Ben Shapiro was talking about the January 6th hearing, and he made an interesting argument, to say the least, about Trump. Let's take a look.
Now, the biggest problem that any prosecution, this is what Merrick Garland is facing down, the biggest problem for any prosecution of Trump is that virtually all the crimes they're talking about are crimes that require intent as an element of the crime. They're not negligence crimes. It's not Trump sat there and he didn't really know what was going to happen. He was careless and reckless about it, and therefore it happened. Right? Because that, again, recklessness is a lower standard. Criminal negligence is a lower standard. If you want to prove intent, and that's what this committee said they were doing. Right? They said from the outset there was a 7-step plan, like a concerted plan of intent to get us from November 4th to January 6th, and that plan was put in place step by step methodically. They have not proved that there was a plan, right? It seems more like Donald Trump thrashing against a glass box is more what it seems like, frankly. But that was always true. Now, a few years ago, I said that I wasn't sure. We were talking about Trump and Ukraine and the impeachment effort. And I said, there, too, this is a crime of intent. I'm not sure that Donald Trump has intent to eat a ham sandwich. He's not a person who has a plan. And a lot of folks on the left were like, well, you're excusing him for everything. It's like, since when is a person not having the capacity to make long-term plans some sort of defense of the...
Well, it is a defense if you say there shouldn't be consequences for his actions, which kind of is what you're saying.
Person qua person. It's a defense against a criminal liability charge.
Oh, oops. I fucked that up. Qua person. I like the fact that he said qua person. I wanted to highlight that. Qua person.
Doesn't mean it's a defense for the person qua person.
Qua person.
But the point is that this is always going to be a difficulty with Trump because Trump is he's so instinctive in the way that he responds to things that it's very difficult ever to say that he had intent to do this particular thing that required a concerted plan. That's just not the way he operates. And I think everybody who watches him knows this, which is why when it goes to a deeper kind of critique of Trump, the left would always say, well, look at what Trump's treating. It's so terrible, man. It's so terrible. Isn't that? It just shows. And you guys, you just want us to brush it off. You're not taking it seriously. And I'd be like, of course I'm not taking his tweet seriously. Why would I take his tweet seriously? He says a lot of stuff that's not serious.
So I actually think he's mostly correct. I'll tell you where he's wrong, though. He's wrong in this sense. Trump did have the intent to overthrow the election. He absolutely did. But yes, in the process of doing that, he's fucking Mr. Magoo. And so the intent is there. The actions are there. Shit, even the language is there in terms of a bunch of the stuff he said about what he wants to happen. But he's massively incompetent. He's surrounded by very incompetent people. So, in other words, the argument from the Liz Cheney types that they had a detailed 7-part plan to overthrow the election that they were meticulously implementing, that I do not buy at all. That is too much like, Trump's the evil mastermind, as opposed to being he's a massively incompetent buffoon who also had the intention to overthrow the election. So it's almost like he's half right, half wrong. Because the part where he's wrong is, therefore, given the fact that he's incompetent and he had no plan, therefore it's like, well, why are we even having this conversation? Let's move on. There's nothing you could get him on. That I don't agree with. I mean, in a system that made sense, yes, you would be able to nab him on some very specific crimes. And to be fair, we're learning more and more with the January 6th committee, which painted a picture that was a little different than even I thought. There's a lot of pieces of evidence now that no, he knew what was going on. Trump's people knew what was going on. They knew it was going to get ugly on January 6th, and Trump wanted it to work. He wanted it to succeed. Now, it wasn't even close to succeeding, but just the fact the intent was there and they tried to one degree or another, that's disturbing enough. So, look, I think the answer was, and you guys know, we've talked about this a number of times, there's a provision in the Constitution that would have allowed the Congress, in the wake of Trump basically inciting a riot, trying to overthrow the government, trying to hang on to power. There's a provision of the Constitution that would have said, look, you can't run for president again, basically. You can't run for office again. And that would have been the solution that made the most sense. Because if you were going to impeach him at the time when he was still president, it's like, well, what's the point? He's going to be gone in 5 minutes anyway. It's a waste of time, right? I don't know if there's enough there to actually criminally convict. I mean, it'd be good if there was. I just don't know if there's enough there in order to do that, right? So then there was this third path, and the third path was like, just ban him from running for office again. And if you had done that, we wouldn't be in this situation where he's clearly going to run again, and he's probably the favorite on the Republican side, although now it's close between him and DeSantis. And so Ben is wrong in the implication of his argument that, hey, because he's a buffoon, therefore it's like, let's just move on. This is a waste of time. No. And this is something I flipped on too, by the way, because I originally thought, well, what's the point of this January 6th hearing? It's like, we saw everything on camera. We don't need a committee hearing to talk about it. It's literally on video. Like, you don't need to talk about it. We just see the video and then go after the people who committed real crimes, and we're done with it. But what happened was, with this January 6th committee hearing, it's landing politically, and it is making an impact on Trump's 2024 prospects. Again, he's still the favorite, or he's tied with DeSantis, but every single Democrat is lost, and then the majority of independents are lost, and even some Republicans are like, this is a bridge too far, I don't like this, and the entire Republican establishment has abandoned Trump in that he's got no backup with his counter-arguments over the hearing. So it's having a political impact, which might make it so that he's too toxic to take a crack at it again, or win, I should say. So there is an element of this that is, it's political theater, no doubt, but it's effective political theater, because sometimes politics is just theater. So, yeah, I don't think what Ben Shapiro said is crazy here. I think the implication of what he said is the problem. The implication being, since he's a buffoon, since he had no plan, since he's disorganized, therefore there should be no accountability. No, he definitely had the intention to overthrow the election, but he's also Mr. Magoo and a buffoon. Both those things are true. And, really, the conclusion we should get to is wherever the evidence points. And like I said, the evidence at the moment is maybe there's not enough there for a criminal conviction, but there definitely should have been enough there to ban him from running for office again. And there's definitely enough there to make him so politically toxic that he's not viable anymore. So there you have it. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.